Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar reviewing the DJI Matrice 300 for public safety applications. My name is Mark Flam, and I'm the Enterprise Sales and Support Manager at DSLR Pros. Today's webinar is hosted by DSLR Pros, which is a DJI Enterprise Gold level dealer. I'm happy to introduce today's panel. We've organized a group of public safety UAS experts with real-world experience. These individuals are some of the top thought leaders of our industry and have a lot of valuable knowledge to share. First up is Garret Bryl. Garret, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, thank you, Mark, and thanks for having me on. Sure. My name is Garret Bryl. I've been what I do for a daily living is I'm a aerospace weapons engineer for L3 Harris, but I've been flying public safety UAS since for about 7 years, since 2014, with both P-Cert and local organizations or local agencies. Done quite a bit over the years and got a chance to meet a whole lot of interesting people out there.
Got it. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Garret. Next up is Barry Moore. Barry, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today, Mark. I appreciate you letting me be here today. Yeah, Barry Moore. I've been on the police force for 31 years. I just recently retired. Retired after 31 years, and nearly 5 of those years was with the UAS division for Mansfield. We were a full-time drone unit. I helped start that division and wrote policy for it. So it's something that I'm passionate about in the public safety world. So thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem, Barry. Thank you for joining us. Also joining us is Derrick Ward.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's an honor to be here with you guys. I got 31 years with one of the largest fire departments in the country. We developed our drone program over 4 years ago, and we've been able to accomplish a lot with that. We now have, well, let's get into, I'm also the Director of Public Safety for Enterprise UAS, and I just want to say it's an honor to be here with Garret, Barry, and Mark. Looking forward to what we can do here.
Thanks, Derrick. And lastly, my name is Mark Flam. I'm the Enterprise Sales and Support Manager at DSLR Pros. I've been in the commercial drone industry since 2014 when I joined DJI as their Enterprise Support Manager. I'm a current Level 1 thermographer and Part 107 pilot, and I want to thank you guys all for joining in today. I'll start off with a real quick introduction about us. Established in 2012, DSLR Pros has been assisting police and fire departments and industrial and agricultural service providers to launch and scale their own drone programs. We offer technical support, training classes, repair services, and wholesale distribution. We're an authorized DJI, Pix4D, FLIR, MicaSense, and SenseFly partner and are located in Southern California. A couple quick notes about today's webinar. This is being recorded and we'll share that with everyone afterwards. We encourage you to ask questions in the question panel, and we'll answer them during the Q&A at the end. All right, now we'll take a look at today's agenda. We're going to start off with the technical capabilities of the Matrice 300. Then we're going to discuss some of the commonly used aircrafts for public safety. Then we'll get into some public safety specific applications, and of course, finish off with the Q&A. All righty, so up first, we're talking about the technical capabilities of the new Matrice 300. So first, we're going to look at the flight time. With only the FPV camera, the flight time is 55 minutes. With the zoom and thermal camera installed, the flight time is 36 minutes. And for comparison, the M200, the predecessor to the M300, had a 15-minute flight time with a similar setup. So we're looking at a 21-minute increase from the M300 to the M200. Next, we're looking at the new and much needed battery charging station. This case can charge a set of batteries in 60 minutes and will automatically switch to the next set when ready. So with the new batteries and rapid charging case, DJI has now enabled nonstop continuous flight. What that means is if you have 4 sets of batteries, by the time your last battery is drained, your first battery is recharged, allowing you to fly continuously. So guys, I'd love to hear from you. What are some situations where ConOps, continuous operations are beneficial?
Well, obviously, being in the air without interruption is one of the most important things we can think of, because situational awareness and giving that information to the IC is important. If we're on a structure fire, to be able to give the vantage point of all 4 sides and to continue feeding that live feed to the IC, that's extremely important. and then gathering information on a brush fire or during search and rescue. Obviously, we don't want interruption in those cases, so to be able to stay up in the air for long duration is a huge advantage.
Yeah, I would think brush fire and search and rescue missions get really long because you're trying to cover massive amount of terrain, which requires a lot of batteries. So, you either have to load up and have 12 sets of batteries or 16 sets of batteries, or with this case, you can just start to cycle batteries.
Right. So another advantage of that, especially looking at SWAT standoffs and situations like that, on several occasions I was having to call in other agencies just for battery support. And the North Texas PSERT, which we are part of, Garrett and I, that's what we do. That's kind of why we got that started, so we could have mutual aid from other departments for battery use. And so being able now just to cycle batteries and have them ready to go on the next cycle is pretty impressive.
Yeah, wow. And do you want to tell us a little bit about the PSURT, Public Safety Response Team, that you mentioned?
Sure. Garrett, chime in when you feel like you need to. We started the Public Safety UAS Response Team probably 2015, just kind of the early stages of it. There were 6 initial departments that were involved in it, and it's grown to 43 departments now in the North Texas area. Includes cities as Arlington, Grand Prairie, Mansfield, just really all the suburbs, some of the larger cities that are involved in it as well. And they act as a task force for drones to respond to situations such as these riots that are going on. Everybody's working together with their drones and bringing equipment together. So having this battery pack, this system to be able to charge and recycle batteries, right now we're scrambling to find batteries for these departments right now to use, just so they'll have an adequate amount. And this would be a game changer for that. Anything on you, Garrett?
Yeah. So in addition to what Barry said, the PSERT team, it should be kind of a goal really across the whole nation. Almost use it as a template and run with it. And we actually encourage it and offer the handbook and everything else out there. But the beautiful thing about the PSERT team is that now your agencies don't have to have an entire fleet of their own. They can all kind of specialize in what they need and call on each other. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. In addition, every agency out there that's listening already knows they have learned at least one tactic on their own. But if that doesn't get shared, then somebody else has to learn that on their own. And one of the big benefits is through our monthly training system, we actually share those kind of the tactics and the techniques learned so that everybody else can benefit from them as well. And what it's ended up is just continuously growing the capabilities. And also talk about the growth. It's actually statewide now. So what Barry was talking about is we're PSERT North Texas, but we have PSERT Gulf Coast and everything else. The one other thing I'd like to say, last thing I'd like to say, and I know Mark's going to touch on this more later, but one of the big things that the longer flight time will enable is public safety flying under a COA does have the ability to daisy chain, and the 300 allows that, but it wouldn't be quite as significant without such longer flight time. So it kind of amplifies that capability.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, there's always been demand for longer range, but if the battery does not match the range, it's no good. All elements of the system need to increase and improvement together. So that's a really good point. And thank you guys for sharing a little bit about the Public Safety Unmanned Response Team as well. All right, now we're looking at the M300 transmission range. Garrett hinted at it earlier, with a 9.3 mile max transmission range. This is basically double the range of the M200, Mavic 2, Phantom 4, Inspire 2, pretty much any of other DJI's aircrafts. This is doubling the transmission range. So with the increased flight time and the increased flight range, DJI is really putting some distance between the M300 and their other systems. So I'll throw it back to you guys for public safety operations. What are those incidents that require these extended flight times? I know, Derrick, you mentioned SAR. Is there anything else that you guys want to add where you either need to fly for longer or fly for extended range? Like when are you finding yourself pushing it past that 1 to 2 mile mark?
Well, I would take this into consideration, that one of the most important things we can have is that transmission capability, meaning we don't want to lose our signal. you know, we get down in a canyon or we get around a building or in an area that's difficult to capture that signal, the OcuSync 2.0 has helped us out tremendously with that. But the idea that now we can go 9.3 miles with this transmission range is a game changer again, and being able to continue with that signal, not have it interrupted with interference, such as magnetic forces and things like that in the area.
So, good point. But Derrick, both Garret and Barry are in Texas, so you might need to explain to them what a canyon is, because I think it's pretty flat out there.
I like
And,
that canyon.
You can give examples of trees too. That'd be great.
and anything, Garret, Barry, anything that you want to add there for when you start pushing the range out?
Actually, for if I may, Mark, you have that triple video channel on there, and not many people are talking about this yet, but in highlight of Overwatch on some of these protests and that kind of stuff, some guys can start thinking about the capability to have you know, dual Zoom feeds and stuff like that at the same time. But again, my big thing with the 9.3 miles is that now I'm going to throw one other thing in here because it's what I do. It's how my brain works. One thing that I'd like to hopefully someone from DS or DJI or similar is listening or will hear this. One of the things that they really need to consider for public safety, in addition to this, because they're doing the right thing, they're giving us more transmission range and power. But if they could get us off of public channels, get public safety off of the public frequencies, that would be the very best next step in what they've already done.
Got it. Well, look, we definitely have people from DJI as well as other manufacturers that are in the attendance today. So hopefully they're listening and taking notes. That's great feedback. All right, so now we're going to look at the payload capacity. The M300 supports the new H20 series, the Z30 zoom camera, and the XT2 thermal camera. It also has an additional payload capacity of up to 6 pounds. So this opens up options for dropping payloads like life vests and other life-saving devices. So I'm curious, you know, what else do you guys see being delivered out there?
Well, I think you know this already, Mark. DSLR Pros has already got systems for the 210 and the 600, and they're in the process of developing one for the 300. But you know what we do with at Enterprise UAS is we actually go out and train police and fire in dropping different types of payloads, whether they be taglines going for swiftwater rescue or emergency communication equipment, all different types of payloads. So we've been designing training to go out and do that with other agencies. So just the capability of being able to do those drops is really important.
Yeah, gotcha. So you mentioned like life vests, also dropping lines for swiftwater rescue. That's another great one. Garret, Barry, do you guys see anything on the law enforcement side, objects being delivered?
Well, there's a long laundry list of things that we've thought of. So a lot of stuff is for tactical situations, officers pinned down situations, delivering communications to a possible hostage situation. We've trained on delivering ammo to officers in the field that are pinned down, from life jackets to you name it, whatever we could think of. We've tried to tie a rope to it as long as the weight fit.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the one thing I want to kind of throw this in there, Mark. This has been this experience with you know, connecting at this time with Derrick and everything. I was on the 300. I was a little bit concerned, you know, about the lack of the external port. But what's great is that some people Derrick, you might want to chime in and tell me who made it, or maybe you don't. I don't know, but somebody's already making a payload delivery system out there. And for public safety, this is real important for everyone to understand, and especially manufacturers to understand. It's not just the ability to deliver a PFD or deliver these life-saving devices, but in addition, you know, your customers have to be able to take this to their city council or whoever. And a lot of them don't understand exactly how they'll be used, but they very much do understand delivering a life-saving device while keeping all of your public safety guys safe as well. So I'm really happy to hear that there's already going to be one available. If it's not available now, then very soon. Is that right, Derrick?
Well, yeah. What we have is a NASA engineer actually retired, who's the father-in-law of a public safety worker that we know, and has designed and developed these systems, something that Enterprise UAS has been able to get. And actually, we did a lot of the R&D for that work, and now we're able to use them on the 210 and the 600. And we've been in communications for the last 6 weeks talking about, what we need to do to get it going forward on the 300. So we're looking forward to that happening in sometime in the very near future.
Alrighty, now we're looking at the technical capabilities of the camera and payloads. So this camera's on a whole new level. So you're gonna wanna, you're not gonna wanna miss this. The H20 is DJI's latest industrial camera. This camera is a wide angle, zoom lens, and laser rangefinder all in one. The H20T is the same, but it also adds thermal. So the zoom lens is the primary sensor. This is a 20 megapixel sensor, which is very high resolution compared to the current standards. For context, the Z30 is 2 megapixels. Next, we'll look at the zoom range, which is 23 times hybrid optical zoom. So that's based on going from the wide angle 24 millimeter lens to the end of the zoom lens, which is 556 millimeters. That's what DJI means by hybrid optical. It's using both cameras, wide and zoom, to achieve the full 23 times optical zoom at 20 megapixels. Next, we're looking at the thermal camera. This is a 640 resolution 30 hertz radiometric sensor with a 13 millimeter lens. These are very, very similar specs to the XT1 or the XT2, which are the previous flagship thermal cameras. So something new and exciting is the laser rangefinder. This allows operators to get an accurate distance between the drone and a target. The rangefinder itself is not detected by the naked eye, but the H20 has an IR cut mode that can see the laser. You can also see the laser with night vision goggles or a DJI Z30 with the IR cut enabled. So this is not only a rangefinder, but can also be used to designate subjects without revealing your presence. So I know you guys are excited to talk about this rangefinder. What are some ways that you see law enforcement agencies being able to utilize this new laser rangefinder?
Barry?
Yeah, to me, the rangefinder is a game changer as well. Just to be able to mark your range and to direct people in with it would be some use I would think of on it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're able to identify a subject and see it on your monitor, you now need a way to communicate that to other people. It's not helpful if only the drone pilot is able to see the subject of interest on the monitor. So the rangefinder opens up all new features that are allowing us to communicate what we're seeing and the exact location to other people. So on the next slide, I have a video that was actually shot by Garret. And Garret, if you're able to, can you narrate us through this video and you'll explain exactly what we're looking at?
Hey, before you play that,
Yes.
if I may, so I got to fly. I got the opportunity to fly. Very grateful for it. Opportunity to fly the M300 and the H20T early, and I'll say this: the M300, as impressive as it is, I will say this: the H20T is what really makes the difference. It's everybody's kind of looking for what's the big. I've heard a lot. What's the big difference? So this payload is what makes a big difference. The rangefinder, not only the laser rangefinder, but the ability to use it with your SWAT team because you can see it through night vision goggles. The ability to get a remote GPS location, the high resolution zoom, and all that stuff. They really did a good job with the H20T, and in my opinion, of everything that brings forth new technology, not just new technology, but new technology for public safety, this is it, and this is what people should be looking at when it comes to the 300 in public safety.
Yeah, well said, Garret. I mean, like the drone has twice the flight time, twice the flight range, twice the obstacle avoidance sensors as its predecessors, but the most impressive improvement is actually the camera itself. So despite all those other aircraft improvements, really the most exciting part is what this H20T is enabling. So well said, and I'm gonna now, and look, we're gonna get into the thermal and the zoom afterwards, but the rangefinder is too exciting, so we're gonna start off with this video, which Garret will help us narrate.
Right, it is the big difference thing. We've seen everything else except for this till now.
And
All
here we
right,
go.
so Is it playing? Okay. So what we were doing here is we were testing. We had the M300 with H20T out. We were testing to see what all sensors the laser on there is an IR laser, invisible to the naked eye. So we were looking to see if you could see an H20T sensor with IR cut turned on, and you could. Then we looked through the Z30 and you could see it. See if we can. It's a little bit choppy here on my screen. Let's see. Okay, so right here I'm showing that we're looking through the camera and showing that you cannot see it on that bush. The laser is actually on that round bush that we zoomed in with the camera. And now we're going to look and turn on IR cut. Now you can see that rectangle right above the crosshair in the middle. That is the IR laser. It's invisible to the naked eye, clearly seen through the lens with IR cut turned on. Then we go over to the Z30. So we also had an M210 with a Z30 on it. And whenever they turned on IR cut, and it's really bright, you can see it there on the bush. He zoomed in on it. Yep, right there where my finger's pointing. So you could easily indicate that. And then of course the real test is as always, the UAS pilot knows all the information, but what can we convey to the ground? That should be the focus now. What can we communicate directly to the ground? And hopefully we'll be able to see it. There you go. You can see it right in the middle on that bush. But this also gives you an idea. One of the challenges that we'll have as pilots of these is knowing that they don't necessarily have the same amount of zoom. So depending on the optics of the ground, the guys on the ground, we need to know our range and what we can see, how far we can actually see that laser. But again, those are NOGs from the SWAT team, Mansfield PD SWAT team. White phosphorus NOGs, if I remember right. And then again, take it out and looked at it with the lens of the camera, completely invisible. And that was the same thing that we saw with our naked eye, what you're seeing on the screen now.
Got it. Here's another video that we shot. The team at DSLR Pros put together. We mentioned that the H20T and the Z30 have an IR cut mode. That's what's enabling to see these laser rangefinders. So this feature improves low light performance, and it also allows you to see IR strobe lights, which is another interesting feature. So we're testing the IR strobe lights in this video. And this is just a quick clip showing what happens when you turn on that IR cut filter and when you turn it off, just so you guys can see this IR filter in action. So here we have two people. One is equipped with the strobe light. The person on the left, you can clearly see, has the strobe light. Now we're looking at that same person on the left. We have the filter on and then we turned it off. Again, now we can see what the drone sees. None of this is visible to the naked eye, but the drone is seeing those IR strobe lights so we can identify friendlies. Now we can see in the bottom of our screen somebody who's not strobed approach them. And even though it's a little bit grainy, you can see who has the strobes and who doesn't. So this is just providing additional situational awareness. All right, now we're talking about the new user interface on the Matrice 300. This new UI makes it easy to switch between the wide angle, zoom, thermal, and rangefinder. And here's a quick video showing that. So now we are on the zoom lens. Now we switch to the wide lens. Now we're on infrared. Now we're on zoom. This is all just done through the app with a touch of a button. So here is a series of images all taken from the same position, showing the different views you can get from the H20T. So first is a wide angle photo showing the whole scene. Now we're looking at the thermal image. This is the full optical zoom image. So this is a 20 megapixel image at 23 times optical zoom. This is the full digital zoom. So now we've gone in all the way and we're starting to digitally zoom. And now here's the wide angle and the full digital zoom side by side for perspective, just so you can see how much detail you can extract from an image. All right. Now we're going to talk about the existing third-party payloads that are compatible with the Matrice 300. So a few years ago, DJI released their SDK program, which allows third-party developers to designate payloads for DJI drones. This was important because it opened up the doors for all these new payloads to be developed. So here we have several niche payloads released by DJI partners that are compatible with the M300. So we have a speaker, a spotlight, gas detector, methane detector. Is there anything here you guys want to discuss?
Yep. If no one else wants to touch on it, I'll jump on this. So, and not necessarily, you can see all these payloads and you'll know if this applies to your operations or not. The big thing that I want to point out, and hats off to DJI for doing this with their Payload SDK, and what I'd like to see actually is this even expanded more, and to have these, to work harder to make these more accessible and more affordable on a level. I hear sometimes that some of these are challenging to get or kind of expensive to get, but the fact is that they're available. Now, one of the things that I've always said, and I've been saying this for years and years and years, and sometimes I wonder if it's well received, sometimes I wonder if it falls on deaf ears, but at least I know with this, someone heard it, and this is great. Here's the thing: is that a drone, say that we'll take the M300, it's great. It's a big, fancy, high-tech drone, but without a payload, what is it? It's just an fancy RC helicopter. It's nothing. It's the payloads. It's the information that you get from these payloads, and the payloads make it capable. The sensors on them it makes a difference. So this is where the focus should be, and it looks like based on this, you can see that that's happening. And again, I'd like to see this to keep expanding to meet all the needs of public safety and, of course, industry.
Yeah, well said. I mean, at the end of the day, whoever your customer is, whether it's, your boss or the taxpayer, they really don't care how fancy the drone is. They really only care about the deliverable. So these SDK payloads help us get all new deliverables that we wouldn't be able to do without it. So definitely they're adding a lot of value. I mean, we know that the megaphone and the spotlight are already being used on the Mavic, and it's nice to see those now become an option on the Matrice. And certainly gas detector, methane detector will be able to add a lot of value as well on the public safety side. All right, moving right along. Now we're talking about the safety features of the Matrice 300. So the Matrice 300 features 6-way omnidirectional obstacle avoidance. This is a big improvement from the Matrice 200, which featured front, top, and bottom obstacle avoidance only. It also has top and bottom auxiliary lights, which are a nice upgrade because it improves the performance of the obstacle avoidance sensors in low light or shadowy conditions. And the drone also has top and bottom anti-collision beacons. What do you guys want to quickly explain why the anti-collision beacons are necessary?
Well, obviously, anti-collision beacons, there's a lot going on here. The directional signal, sensing, and the lights. Obviously, if we're flying at night, we need to be able to know where the aircraft is and follow the rules and regs that the FAA puts out there for us to be able to fly at night. But I just want to talk a little bit about the directional sensing. That's huge for public safety. One of the number one concerns is safety when we're flying these aircraft, and we're usually flying them in some of the worst conditions possible, whether it's visibility or the weather that's outside. And so to be able to have this type of sensing capability increases our capability and reduces the liability for public agencies.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's worth investing in a system that has the full obstacle avoidance because you're helping to protect your investment. Last thing you want to do is lose an aircraft and have downtime as a result of that. Garrett, Barry, anything you want to add there, or good to go?
I think we're good to go. I definitely agree with what Derrick said. The obstacle avoidance is great. Does it have the ability to disengage the obstacle avoidance, or is it something that is there constant?
No, it has the ability to disengage it. It also has a new feature not previously seen, and somebody will correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't believe you could set the sensitivity in the Matrice 200. I believe in the Matrice 200, again, somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe in the Matrice 200 it was fixed. Now in the Matrice 300 we can set the sensitivity, so that's nice because I know, especially public safety operators, you might want to find yourself flying a little more aggressive or pushing the limits a little farther, and you don't want to have it, pumping the brakes on you 40 feet out if you need to be a bit closer. So you can turn it off and you can adjust the sensitivity.
That's great.
And if any of you have ever seen Barry Moore fly, then you know exactly. You nailed it right on the money. He doesn't want anything slowing him down. So, hey, one thing I'll add to that, Mark, is me personally, and I got to say, out here in Texas, generally the guys that are onboarding and coming on new, they have a good appreciation for the sensors. as they gain experience, again, we're kind of in wide open country out here in Texas. They tend to take the Barry Moore route and turn them off, especially with, you know, the ones that might slow them down in any way. But anyway, the one thing that is appreciated sometimes is the avoid technology if you have to do a return to home. You know, sometimes these guys, things go bad. They don't have, they need to just let this thing fly back itself because they've got to pay attention to 10 things at the same time, or whatever it might be. And in that case, they need the help from those sensors to make sure it returns home in time. And I know that there is a specific option in there, or there has been in the past anyway, to enable that collision avoidance on return to home.
Yeah, and I'm sure that if it was in previous versions, we'll see it also in the Matrice 300 as well. So thanks for sharing that. That's good feedback. Alrighty, now we're taking a look at the M300 ingress protection rating. IP ratings are a big part of safety. This is the drone's ability to protect against debris as well as water. So the Matrice 300 has an IP45 rating. The first number 4 refers to protection against solids like dust and debris. The second number 5 refers to protection against water. So 5 is basically being able to withstand jets of water from all sides. So this basically means you can keep flying even in a heavy rain, rated up to 100 millimeters per 24 hours. So here we're looking again at this IP rating. So both Matrice 200 and 300, their rating against solids is a 4. Then the Matrice 300, its rating against liquids is a 3. Matrice 300's rating against liquid is a 5. So basically we're saying the Matrice 300 can protect against water jets from any angles. This is going to allow you to fly your drone in a heavy rain. Like the Matrice 200 was advertised as IP water rated as well, but I know we heard stories about people flying in heavy rains and having problems. Garret, Barry, Derrick, have you guys ever flown the M200 in rain? Did you have any problems? Anything you want to add here on these IP water ratings?
I'll say yes, and mine crashed.
All righty.
So
I'll say that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm
sorry, Derrick. I was just going to say the bad thing was with the 210, it flew several times in the rain with no problems, and then one day in the rain it went down. So it was kind of a hit and miss for a lot of guys on the 210. To where this rating is great due to the fact that we do fly in rain. I mean, we have to. So this is good for that reason.
Yeah, and we can't choose, you know, like Barry's saying, we can't choose the weather we're flying in when we have emergency, but we're certainly not going to, you know, drop a 210 out of the air also because it's not going to be able to deal with the rain. So obviously having that protection is going to benefit everybody. And we're, you know, there's going to be lots of times where we won't put a 210 up in the rain because we know it's not going to be able to handle it. So it's good to have it.
I want to add a little bit of clarity, if you don't mind, Mark, onto that. To go maybe back one slide. Okay. So I'm sure there's at least one, if not more, saying, okay, Garret, you did the math for us on next slide after this one. So the one that has the IP rate, there we go. So I know there's at least one, if not more, out there that are saying, okay, Garret, you did the math for us on the M210, because one of the challenges is that they put IP43, but you know what? To most public safety people, that means nothing. What does that really mean to me? And what does a 60-degree angle mean? That means nothing. How fast can I go? Of course, you know, if you can calculate the numbers on that, and it basically meant that in including your wind speed, it was about 20 miles an hour was the maximum range. So if you had a 10-mile-an-hour headwind, you were reduced to 10 miles an hour. At that point, you were risking ingress. Well, just for clarification for everybody, what this means with this rating is that you have no limitations. Fly it the same way you would in the rain as you would on a perfectly dry day. This rating guarantees that. Makes
Yeah, thanks.
sense?
Yeah, thank you. Nice explanation. Okay, so now we're looking at the new UAV health management system. So I'll go through this quickly, but I do want to take a second to talk about the flight log management because that's very relevant for public safety. But we have first we have flight data management. This records the flight data and provides maintenance suggestions accordingly. We have our flight log management, which allows you to export your flight records. We have firmware management, as well as error records and troubleshooting guidelines, which helps you look back at error messages you may have received, as well as find relevant troubleshooting steps. So I think the most important thing here is that flight log management. I'm going to let our panel explain why that's so important, but do one of you guys want to get into that?
I'll just state quickly that obviously flight log management and pilot management is a necessity when flying under a certificate of authorization. That's what they require. And any agency or program that's out there with a drone program is going to be able to have to keep records on these things. So to have this helping you out right there in the controller and be able to download the flight logs are a great thing.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully it'll help make it easier for people as they need to do their submit their flight logs for their COA.
Correct. Monthly reportings, is a must. So this data has to be accurate, and this is one way to make that happen. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. And if this system is able to help free up manpower that's desperately needed to be out in the field, and now they're not stuck doing reporting and exporting and manually doing this, it can almost help to act as like a force multiplier, for lack of a better word. Help free up some manpower, help people work more efficiently, so they're not stuck, manually curating their flight logs. Alrighty, so now we're looking at some more safety and redundancy features. The M300 has a dual IMU, dual barometer, compass, RTK antenna, and dual batteries. So this all provides redundant components for improved reliability. And this is important and is a key differential between consumer and industrial grade drones, because the redundancy can reduce the liability to the agency. We also have the all new dual control, which allows you to change pilots mid-flight, which even gives you redundancy there with like a traditional pilot and a co-pilot setup. And we're going to talk about advanced dual controls later on. But it is nice to see DJI incorporate all these redundant features to help keep the aircraft safe and avoid any sort of catastrophic failures. So some additional redundancy features we have are the 3-propeller emergency landing. This will allow you to maintain control of the aircraft if one of the propellers were to fail. The idea is not that you're going to safely land your aircraft and it's going to be fine and perfect, but it will go into a controlled descent where the speed will be limited, and you'll have some ability to help steer the aircraft towards a safe area for a semi-controlled landing. So hopefully no one ever has to test this feature, but the idea is it will keep the aircraft from falling out of the sky and potentially injuring someone. We also have the new extra wide FPV camera and the AD.
Can I touch on that real quick on those 3-propeller landing?
Yeah.
When I had my motor failure, that the other props all spun up to over 10,000 RPMs, and we know that because Garret came in and tested it for me. It went down so fast that the time I looked up, it was gone. And if that would have hit somebody, it would have killed them. So this feature here, I think, is extremely important to the fact that if it does lose a motor, it's not going to drop and start pushing 10,000 RPM straight to the ground and potentially hurt somebody or kill them. So I think this is something that really needs to be touched on and pushed out as a great feature of this drone, because that's huge.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well said.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
So I want to jump on that, because all these redundancy systems and everything, they are all fantastic. A lot of them, we had them to some extent, maybe a lesser extent previously, but it's good to see that they're enhancing these, because this is the exact direction that needs to go. I mean, this is similar to what manned aviation does, where they have redundant systems. And so that way, if one fails, the other one automatically overrides, and this is great. But the big one here is, as Barry pointed out, the 3-propeller emergency landing. That is the one thing that agencies really need to focus on the aircraft, and probably, in my opinion, on the platform itself, other than the payloads. Again, the H-20T being the biggest thing. This is probably the second, or one, or maybe, yeah, probably is the second, because of the risk of what could happen if one falls. Now, one thing I want to add to it is I did have an M600 that experienced this, and it had this kind of similar type of feature. One of the things I kind of want to get out there to agencies as they start getting 300s and incorporate them into their training, one of the things I want to kind of highlight is that just because you have 3 props, the landing is not going to be pretty. And the second thing is all 3 of those other motors are having to take up for the loss of the other. and they are pretty much overloaded at that point. So your training, sorry, and so your training should be that you're gonna, if you experience that or you go into that, that you should get it on the ground as quickly as possible. You know, find a good safe landing spot and get it on the ground, clear the area if needed. But time is not on your side. But the big benefit is it's not going to fall.
Yeah, well said. I mean, if you're out there flying Phantoms, Inspires, Matrice 200, Matrice 600, you don't actually, Matrice 600 has this, but if all those other ones I mentioned, they don't have the 3 propeller emergency landing feature, so you're opening up yourself to a little additional risk. And look, propeller failure happens. I mean, that is definitely one of the weak links in the whole chain on the grand scheme of things. All right, now we're going to look at the new smart features that have been introduced with the Matrice 300. There are several new features being introduced, but we're going to focus mainly on the ones that are beneficial to public safety. So first, we're looking at the new smart pin and track feature. In this video, you'll see the camera zoom in on a subject, drop a pin, then fly to the subject. You can see the location on the map view or display the longitude and latitude coordinates. So here we see we're looking at our subject, we zoom out, we drop our pin, switch to our FPV camera, and now we're flying towards that pin. That's the diamond, the green diamond in the center. We're using that to fly to it. So you can zoom in on something, find what you're looking for, drop a pin, and then fly to that pin. So this is, I mean, this is a brand new feature that we have not seen before, at least from DJI. Now you can see we can switch to the map view and see where the pin is. So you can see the pin's location on the map view to communicate to others, or you can even pull up the longitude and latitude coordinates of the pin to communicate with others. So I'll let you guys explain why this is important and how you see public safety agencies deploying this feature.
This is one of my favorite features. We got several, but this is another great tool for us during a search and rescue to, if we're going to identify where our victim is, our patient, then we're able to mark them and give a latitude and longitude and share that with other companies that are rolling in. And obviously, I'm going to let Barry speak to the law enforcement side of that, but that's a great feature to have in search and rescue.
Yeah, I'll touch on this too. I think this is an awesome feature. I can't tell you how many times I've been out on a search and rescue or a suspect that fled from police, and we're now actively searching for him, to where we might get a lead, our battery goes dead, and being able to mark our spot, we just kind of had to look at our map on our controller, which sometimes was accurate, sometimes wasn't. So to be able to drop a pin, go back, and then come back to that same exact location, maybe where you first spotted the suspect, this is a no-brainer. This is going to work really well, and I think it'll be received real well in public safety.
Mark, I'd like to add on to that. So one of the things that you verified is that you can manually enter / edit these steer points, right? These pins, I call them steer points for my real world reasons. But anyway, now one of the big things, and when Barry was talking about that, a particular incident where Barry and I were flying together on was an escaped convict. And Barry had a track on him, but he was low on battery, and he had me come in and take his place and continue the track. The challenge is he had to talk me in as he's flying back. He had to talk me in and try to tell me where it was. If it was just, if he could have gave me GPS locations and I could have entered them, then now I have a steer point to go to, and it eliminates that extra error that could be from, and really it's a distraction to him trying to return with a low battery, and the accuracy, of course. So I think it's a fantastic feature for everything, fire, law enforcement, search and rescue, everything across the board. I'm hoping this is one of those features I hope they continue to expand on, and not just let it even be how it is. I think this is just the beginning of this kind of capability.
Yeah, well said. And thanks for sharing that real world experience with it. I know that public safety operators have been asking for this type of feature for a while, and it's nice to see the first version of it finally become developed. All right, now we're looking at the smart track feature. I mean, me personally, I have not been this impressed by a DJI feature in a long time. This just really blew me away when I first saw it. It brings the drone to a whole new level of what you can do with it. Basically, this allows you to automatically detect and track objects. Using the zoom lens and the 360 gimbal, the camera will follow a subject while the drone stays stationary. The other nice thing is the location of the subject you're tracking will be displayed in the map, so you can look at that map view and see the location of whatever you're tracking. So again, where there's a common theme here about being able to not only spot something, but communicate its location to others. So I'll play this video and you guys will see exactly what I'm talking about. Here we go. So those yellow targets represent different things you can tap and follow. You see if we've selected our target here. Now the drone's not moving, it's just zooming out and panning, and now, gonna zoom back in. Anyone who's ever tried to do this shot live where you follow a car and it's going south and now it passes the drone and now it's going north, it's a very hard shot to pull off and you could easily lose track of the drone while tracking it, and it can be hard to find the subject again. So what do you guys think? Anything to add there?
What I love on this H20T is that the fact there's multiple things going on all at the same time. One of the things I love is the camera actually is following the car, but it's also changing its focus. It's zooming in and zooming back out and keeping that vehicle in range. So, and you can follow it with the drone and just keep tracking as you go. That I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and a nice thing is that the drone itself is staying stationary and it's just able to cover this huge range using the zoom lens. So you don't have to worry about, clipping a power line or a palm tree while the drone is flying autonomously. You can park the drone in a safe spot and then let the camera and the zoom lens do all the work. Garrett, Barry, anything that you guys want to add there on this new tracking feature?
It's absolutely great. To be able to follow a car like that and not have to worry about what your drone's doing, it's fantastic. It's just something else taken off the pilot that allows them to have better control and to be able to, now you can get on the radio and talk and not worry about your controllers and saying, hey, look, this car is going this direction, and your drone's stationary and it's still following. So yeah, it's good stuff. So
yeah, that's a great point about being able to be like a little bit more free to communicate. You also don't have to be, an expert pilot and camera operator to pull off this shot. And one thing we noticed just while testing it at our shop is that if you do fly along with it and operate the gimbal and use your finger to pan and tilt, it is really powerful with a little bit of input from a human to help it out. It gets really powerful and you can start to follow subjects for a long distance, which would obviously add value.
Yeah, the other thing on that, Mark, is that I know there's been plenty of times flying for firefighters that we have a particular interest in a certain apparatus out in the field, say a brush truck that's really near the front edge or something like that. The ability for it to maintain track on that while you're answering questions and reporting data back to command and whatever else might, a lot of times it's kind of weird out there when you're with the guys. Sometimes you're flying and then it seems like 5 minutes later, everybody and their brother wants to know everything that can be known from the air. So this will allow you to maintain that track on a particular apparatus and still provide all that information.
Nice, thanks for sharing that. So now we're looking at the new primary flight display. This new display brings enhanced situational awareness to the operator. Real quickly, we'll take a look at this video here. The most notable thing is that we have this new flight vector path. So that's that circle in the center is kind of showing us where the drone will go if we continue on our current trajectory. So you can see the operator is using this feature to help line it up and fly through this complex environment. Also on the bottom center, we have that that radar indicator showing where our obstacles are in relation to the drone, so you can start to get a sense of how close you are to obstacles. And then one other thing that I will add is you do have the option to switch to a clean display, which means you can hide all of this text that you're seeing and just only have the video feed. But it is nice to see DJI improve the flight display. This looks like its roots are in manned aviation. We're seeing a lot of new features like our horizontal in vertical speeds and wind direction and altitude above ground level, altitude above sea level. So it's really feeling more like the navigation display that you would see in manned aviation. Do you guys have anything you want to add to this new feature?
Well, I'll just add that, you know, to have situational awareness on the ground is important. So we're showing multiple different things that we can do. But even if we're looking and keeping an eye on a brush fire or wildland fire, we're getting other information that might be helpful, like the wind direction and the speed of the wind. So the combination of that and some of the other capabilities with the thermal camera, everything all in one system is it's good information to have.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll say something to that too. I can't tell you how many times we've been asked to, hey, can you fly up under this awning and see if you can see what's going on, see if you can see the suspect or whatever. And to have this clearance and to know your clearance level here is really great, because we were winging it for so long now that this really opens that up to where you know your obstacles once you're there. So just little things like that, I think, will go a long way on this.
Yeah, we've all been out flying and heard the obstacle avoidance, you know, alarm go off, and then you like look down at the radar map and you're trying to figure out what's tripping it. It is really nice that they improved this, so you have a little bit more peace of mind of being say, okay, this is what it's seeing. I can now have an idea of what's going on. It's just all about situational awareness.
And Mark, on
Right.
the if pilot, now that we actually have an accurate flight vector like that, I know a lot of people are looking at the collision avoidance and the sensors and everything around there, which are very important whenever you're going to fly some kind of close proximity like you see in this video. But exactly where your mouse is going around, if now that we actually have that in manned aviation, say in an F-16 or Apache helicopters, that's the kind of stuff I deal with daily. Those are absolutely critical for accurate flight path, right? So if once these UAS pilots and agencies, once they get their hands on those, if they'll start paying attention to that and training how to use it, they can significantly increase their capabilities and skills on flying these, and also just their confidence in their equipment and where it's actually going.
Yeah, they'll turn
Yeah.
their obstacle avoidance off, I promise you, because it's just it's something you don't use in our world. I know it's a great feature, but if you train hard enough and you use these controls, like Garrett said, and Garrett harped on us all those times we've been training, and you will turn those obstacles avoidance off because they become a nuisance to you instead of helpful. So, you know, those are little things, but when you have this on your screen and to be able to know what's around you is huge.
Got it. All right, now we're talking about the advanced dual control. This is another new feature that allows you to switch pilots mid-flight, and there's been a lot of buzz around this particular feature. Basically, what this means is you can take off from point A, fly to point B, and then switch to a different pilot at point B. So, guys, how do you see public safety agencies benefiting from this feature?
Well, let's take a structure fire for an instance. To be able to fly and have two pilots on opposite sides of that structure, you're able to hand off the aircraft so that you continue with that continuous line of sight with the aircraft. So it increases your capabilities in areas where you have obstacles, things that you as a pilot cannot see. And then again, on a brush fire or wildland fire, to be able to hand off to another pilot, that again gives the fact that the drone has the ability to go as far as it does and then be able to hand it off to another pilot just increases your capability. And then also we're adding more flight time, so we're able to get more done in one flight than we were able to do before with these upgrades.
I think this will cut down on flight fatigue. It's real tense situations. You're flying. You're super focused on what you're doing and what you're looking for, and to be able to switch it off with someone else who's already you're already on the same spot. You don't have to worry about changing locations. Will really decrease flight fatigue for sure.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great point, Barry. One
Yeah.
thing I'll add to it is this technology finally allows us to take advantage or utilize, I should say, of the daisy chaining that's allowed in the COAs by the FAA. So this capability is fantastic. One example I'd like to kind of plant a seed on for those who are listening in public safety is think about something we had just south of here a few years ago. I guess it's been more than a few now, but anyway, we had a chemical plant explosion down in it's the town called West Texas, not West Texas. Anyway, so we had a chemical plant explosion down there, and this kind of capability and technology would have been outstanding because they wouldn't allow anybody near it. It was too dangerous, too hazardous. So this kind of a long range with the handoff would have been ideal for that.
Got it. Thanks, guys. Alrighty, up next is the high-res grid photo. This allows you to select an area of interest and capture a series of high-resolution photos. So rather than take one wide-angle picture, the drone will take a series of zoomed-in pictures, then stitch them together for a high-res photo. So I mean, to me, this feature is definitely geared for industrial applications. But on the public safety side, I think there's different ways that it could be used for as well. Maybe different types of pre or post incident investigations or arson investigations. I'll quickly play the video and we can take a look. The idea is anytime you want to really gather a lot of detailed imagery on a subject where just a single wide shot won't do, you can use this feature to take a series of zoomed in images. I could see this being really beneficial for like an arson investigation. Do any of you guys have anything you want to add on this new high-res grid feature?
I think you've mentioned some of the most important points, that crime scene and traffic accidents, arson investigation, you're able to get detailed information from these photos and study them in post. So those are really where I see public safety, and I'm sure in law enforcement, there's many more aspects that you can use this in, but those are real good use case scenarios.
Yeah, thanks. Look, it definitely seems like it was geared for industrial, but so often in public safety, we see you guys taking, features not necessarily designed for your use case and finding a way to deploy it. So I'm curious to see, what public safety agencies do with this new high-res grid photo.
I think outside crime scenes will be a great use for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could even see if you're getting ready, if it's a small enough scene and you're getting ready maybe to serve a warrant and you want to take a photo and see what exactly they're there. Maybe you want to look, is there some sort of special security system that you're not expecting to run into, or you guys would know the exact use case better, but I could see different ways of utilizing it to just get more detail in your imagery. All right, now we're gonna, sorry, go ahead.
No, I definitely agree with you there.
Cool, so now we're gonna look at Matrice 300 safety and security features. So there's a lot, we could do a whole webinar just on this. We're not gonna, but we will take a second and talk about data and security. Of course, different agencies have different data security requirements, and I'll let the panel share their thoughts on that subject. But quickly, I'll mention that the M300 has a local data mode, which disconnects it from outside networks. It also has an AES 256 encryption level. So for some agencies, that may be enough. For other agencies, maybe not even close. What do you guys think?
You want me to go first or last?
I think you should go first and last, because I know you have a lot to say on the subject.
Okay, so I'll start off. Let me go with product security, and I'm probably going to get some hate messages and emails and everything else, but you know what? It needs to be spoken, so I'm going to. I live in the DoD world. I work on things that are classified all the time, and I keep hearing all this buzz of worried about drones with data leaks and everything else. And you know what? There may be some. That's absolutely legitimate at a military and a defense and a federal level, but public safety agencies, unless you have some kind of some kind of infrastructure, something that's absolutely it is already under armed watch. I hate to say it, but it's almost a ridiculous point to make. Here's the thing: is whenever we go into a secured area, you can't bring a cell phone. You can't bring in any electronics or anything like that. Why? Because your cell phone can be turned on remotely, that can be listened to. So if it's that much of a concern, I would highly expect that all of your agencies also ban cell phones from use anywhere on when you're deployed or dispatched. Also, no tablets, no computers, no nothing if it needs to be that secured. I'll let everybody else talk. I want to touch on one other thing on this, but let's get maybe some input from Derrick and Barry first.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and just say this. If there's nothing that they're going to get from me that they couldn't get from Google Earth. And so I do kind of listen to all this talk going on about it. I just kind of, it's one of those things that unless, and I do tell departments when I'm talking to them about it, is if you have a nuclear plant or you have a base or something in your area, then absolutely don't fly your drone over it. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. But for the everyday guys that are just out here, we're chasing criminals and fighting fires and doing things like that. There's nothing that they can get from me that's gonna really mess up the security of the United States. So I just, I'll put that out there too. I don't put a lot of weight into that other than just the fact that they can get from Google Earth what I'm giving them anyway. So I'll leave it at that as well.
I agree with both Garrett and Barry, and I don't have anything else to add.
All right, geofencing.
All right,
Yeah.
so I'm going to go ahead and do it. I already opened it up, and now I'm probably just going to turn my email off and look at it on Monday. But I'm going to go ahead and throw another one out there in geofencing. In fact, I had a little bit of an online conversation about this today. So geofencing, here's my opinion on it. And I know that many, I'm not going to say all, but many, if not most, public safety agencies will agree with me on this. Geofencing is a great idea from DJI to put it out there. How they implemented it was not so much. Geofencing is something that should be applied to any drone that you could go down to Best Buy or Walmart or anything like that. All your Phantoms or used to be, or your Mavics or whatever. But the problem with it is that it should not have been applied to enterprise products. First of all, you have to go to an enterprise dealer. So Dad's not going to go down to Best Buy and buy his little Johnny Matrice 300 with an H20T for Christmas. That's just not going to happen. You're going to have professionals that are trained and licensed and everything else. And then the thing is that it becomes not just an annoyance, but the QEP, which is the workaround. So, and we need to know that we spoke about that. We need to know that if you're going to get all public safety agencies out there, if you get an M300, go through the QEP program. You need that QEP, Qualified Entities Program. It unlocks the geofencing for that. But anyway, we have had several times, one of the more recent ones in a tornado, where that doesn't work perfectly all the time. So anyway, for the DJI guys that are listening out there, I wish that in the future you'd reconsider the implementation on the geofencing. Public safety doesn't need it, and again, I think it's great for all the consumer electronics, but not so much for public safety. And I don't need to elaborate anymore. I know I get plenty of people throwing stones on that one, but again, I think the majority of public safety agrees with me on that.
I don't know, Garrett, who would be throwing stones at you, because I think probably everybody listening on this thing is going to agree with what you said. All public safety, police and fire are going to agree. There's no need to have this thing geofenced or locked. So, it's good that we have an avenue to take to unlock it. And Mark, I'm sure will talk more about that, and he can help anybody with that. But I think everybody's going to agree with what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, I would say geofencing for consumer drones my personal opinion, is a no-brainer. We want to keep the sky safe for manned aviators. Geofencing for enterprise drones like the Matrice 300, the solution is QEP, but until that becomes 100% and we don't hear a single person saying, hey, it didn't work for me by this area, it's still something worth discussing. And then just to conclude that, if anybody out there feels like their agency is a good candidate for QEP, that's the program that helps you unlock your geofencing. DSLR Pros can help you unlock your drone. You would just need to simply email sales@DSLR Pros, Mark@DSLR Pros, drop me a line in the question panel. I'll follow up with you. We can help you with that process, because if you're trying to use these drones for public safety, you need a solution to the geofencing. All right, moving along. So now we're just going to open it up a bit and talk about some various ways public safety agencies are deploying drones in general, as well as how they apply to the Matrice 300. This will just be an open discussion, so guys, feel free to just share any thoughts that you have. We'll start up on the fire protection side. We know drones are being used for brush fires, swiftwater rescue, structure fires, search and rescue. Derrick, do you want to start off with brush fires and share any experience you have with this world?
Sure. So there's many different aspects that unmanned aircraft have been helping us with, and going out and proving that proof of concept has helped our department grow and other agencies grow nationally. Brush fires were able to identify hotspots and evacuate crews. Identification of those hotspots are important, because once we get a fire out and we move our ground crews to a different location, if we don't get those hotspots out when the Santa Ana kicks back in, we get flare-ups and we lose houses and structures and possibly life. So what we've been able to do is go and we'll fly that entire loop of wherever the fire is out, or wherever we need to check for hotspots, and we'll do that. We'll identify those and extinguish those. So we're in just that one thing there, we're saving lives and property. I mean, we don't have it documented what we've done, meaning if we save a house, it'll never make it on the news because we put a hotspot out. But this is something that we're doing all the time, and just increasing our ability to extinguish the fire.
Got you. Thank you, Derrick.
Yeah.
Let's talk about swiftwater rescue, kind of changing gears here a bit.
Yeah, so swiftwater rescue, it's kind of new to some public agencies using these drones and these drop systems, but we're developing the drop system to be able to drop a flotation device with a tagline. In this case, you see a guy on the side of the cliff there, and he's throwing a flotation device to the victim. And I would say probably 70% of the chance, if he's that far away, he's going to miss that device. He's in moving water and things like that. We're able to actually fly a drone with a flotation device hanging down, 8 or 9 feet, and we're able to dangle it over the victim as he's moving down the water. Once he grabs that flotation device and we know he has it, we can release it from the drone and then pendulum over to the side of the river there. So, and that's just one aspect. There's many other things that we do, but those are other capabilities that we use for swiftwater rescue.
Yeah, as you know, Mark, back in 2015, we did that. We delivered a tagline to a victim that you couldn't send a shot line. I know there's probably some guys, well, I'll just send a shot line. No, this guy had his porch sweep away, and if you would have sent a shot line to it, would have bounced off his house and maybe knocked him in the water. Be able to precisely deliver it was key. Hats off to Chief Baker for commanding that. And the one other thing I wanted to touch on real quick on the brush fire, I know that was the previous slide, but one of the things that's interesting that we found is this is more of a grass fire than a brush fire. But commands always wants to know, and you always hear them, well, I hope we got down a good wet line as they're rolling away, right? You can actually use a drone with a thermal imager and see your wet line on the ground and see the integrity of it.
Wow. Interesting. I never thought about combining those two. Very interesting. All right, now we're talking about structure fire. I saved this one for last, Derrick. I know you have a lot of thoughts on this one.
Well, we're able to identify hotspots on roofs, obviously, and where the fire is, but some roofs that have lost their integrity. I know I've told you many times, Mark, a buddy of mine had fallen through a panelized roof about 3 years ago. Actually, four firefighters fell through and they all survived, but a couple of them with some burns on their hands and actually been placed off duty. But we didn't have a drone on that fire, but for me to be able to understand the capability of the drone and knowing if we had one there, we may have been able to identify the integrity of that roof based on the amount of heat that was being radiated up against the top. So to be able to kind of get an idea on these large structures in the panelized roofs and where that fire is helpful to be able to evacuate crews, ventilation crews when needed.
Got it.
Yeah. Hey, I want to touch on that one time to add on to what Derrick said. I need to send you this one picture that I have. It's actually a still shot out of some video there, Mark. But you know, Derrick deals with these big monster structures. Out here, we deal with more smaller structures, usually residential fires and stuff like that. And again, hats off to Chief Baker for utilizing this capability. But one of the things that we noticed is we had a roof, an attic fire. I'm sorry. And first thing he asked us to see the overhead of the structure, and it was amazing. My jaw pretty much bounced off the controller as we looked down, and we could see every structural member of that roof that was on fire or had lost integrity. And of course, the firefighters still need to use their sounding the roof and their techniques, but the confidence in their ability to walk across the roof with the structural integrity was 1,000-fold. So this kind of technology just from the air, the ability to see that is big time life saving for firefighters.
And hey, that's what it's all about. Thank you. Now we're looking over at the public safety side for law enforcement. We'll discuss some of the different ways we're able to use the M300. Starting off with Overwatch. Garret, Barry, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I'll start out. I'll preface it with this. 2 weeks ago, drones and public safety, or specifically law enforcement, were looked at as a luxury. And I think after the events of the past couple of weeks, from the calls I'm getting and everything that's happening, I think drones became a necessity, which this panel already knows was a necessity. But it took different incidents to make that happen. And the drones are really proving their worth right now with Overwatch and keeping officers safe and be able to send elements into situations that probably before they wouldn't have been able to. So Overwatch is huge with drones, with the events that are happening now, just to be able to give your boots on the ground just a little bit more peace of mind, knowing that they have someone in command watching what's going on that can send them help is huge. So I'll just leave it with that on that side.
Thank you. Yeah, now we're looking at discussing fugitive apprehension. Here we have an image of the Crystal Sky monitor with a thermal camera. You can see a couple people spotted in the center there. Barry, any thoughts here?
Same thing. It kind of goes along with the Overwatch. Is just to be able to get that situational awareness, to be able to send the officers and to that situation for a fugitive apprehension is, and the ability to see what he has in his hands. You know, if he takes off running, knowing that they have eyes in the air to be able to see which way he's going and to be able to take care of that. So yes.
Got it. Now we're talking about incident reconstruction. Here we have a photo of an overturned tanker. Any thoughts on how you could use drones or the Matrice 300 to respond to these types of callouts?
Do you want to touch on that a little bit, Derrick, or I'll do a little bit, and you probably do that a lot. I know that y'all do have a few cars on the highways in LA. I know you don't have a lot, but you have a couple. So for the Dallas area, incident reconstruction is huge, especially fatality accidents. Now that you have these different products out there, that we can go and map these scenes with the drone, and to be able to potentially get your mapping done and able to clear a scene in a matter of minutes instead of sitting 2 or 3 hours by using a Ground Station Pro or something of that nature, you know, is definitely something you want to look at. And I'll let you touch a little bit on that, Derrick.
Yeah, I agree with you, Barry. The situational awareness that you're going to get right out of the gate is what's important on a lot of this stuff. But for law enforcement, they're able to take these images and document where the bullet casings might be on the ground. They're able to document and keep the crime scene from being contaminated because they're recording all this before the contamination. But for us, we utilize this we could have an overturned train that's got hazardous materials spilling out. We can have a hazardous material situation where we're able to document and see where the plume is actually traveling to, how much liquid is on the ground, where the vehicles are placed, and even if there's possible, body victims or bodies that have been launched from the vehicle. So to be able to get that overview out of the gate is really, really important. Let me say one more thing that's extremely important is if you have a major accident, whether it's a plane crash, a train accident, or a vehicle accident at night, and bodies are laid out all over the place, you're not going to be able to identify where those are for a long, long time because it's dark and they could be 100 feet away. So to put a drone up with a thermal camera and to be able to start identifying where these victims are, we can get to them quicker and save their lives, because obviously time is of the essence, right, when we're doing that. So just a whole bunch of different capabilities there, but thermal cameras at night, being able to identify those positions of where those bodies are, understanding the hazmat situations that you have, how much fuel is on the ground, all these are just real valuable, important information.
Yeah, one piece of feedback that I've always heard is that anything that can be done to clear the accident, get rid of the sirens, and avoid a secondary collision that could happen while people are, looking at backed up traffic or looking at sirens is really beneficial. So certainly using drones or even using features like the high-res grid photo, or for bigger areas, like a Pix4D mapping situation, anything that'll help you clear that accident quicker, that always seems to be a key goal when it comes to post-accident reconstruction.
Yeah.
So this last one kind of covers everything we've been discussing. This photo here is credited from Dave Martell with Las Vegas Metro PD. On our last webinar, he was explaining to us how basically ever since 1 October, they've been flying drones for major events on the Strip to maintain situational awareness and to help check roofs and to, look in parking structures and things along those lines. So first, thanks Dave for this photo, and thanks for everything that you're doing to keep your community safe. Do any of you guys have any final notes you want to add on this overarching subject of situational awareness? I think we've covered it a lot, but this is a really powerful image right here that just sort of shows how their whole workflow changed following that incident, and now they're deploying drones regularly. And here's just an example of that. All right, last but not least, we're going to talk about search and rescue. I'll open this up to anybody that wants to share. Matrice 300 with the H20T has a 640 thermal camera, very capable for search and rescue. Is this things that you guys is search and rescue something that you're currently doing today, guys?
Well, you know that we, Mark, doing a lot of it, and to have the thermal camera, we're going to be able to identify more and see more, verify our victim, and to be able to, once we verify it with that thermal image, or actually find it with the thermal image, we can verify it with that zoom camera all in one system. But search and rescue is huge. And then we talked about also being able to actually mark the location of that victim and pass that information on to incoming companies or rescuers is of extreme value. So we've talked a lot about it, but search and rescue, this is a game changer for search and rescue.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the zoom plus thermal together plus rangefinder, it's really purpose built for this application. You're going to see a hotspot with the thermal camera, zoom in on it, identify what you're looking at, and drop a pin. One camera is capable of doing all that. So really impressive technology.
Yeah, Mark, just sorry, I dropped off there for a minute, but my internet decided to reboot. I guess we had a little power surge, but anyway,
I thought the pro geofence crowd came and got you.
Yeah, that's probably what it it's probably what it is. Someone hacked. I'll shut this guy up. Anyway, yeah, in fact, we do search and rescue quite often. It seems like it ramps up more about this time of the year too. In fact, just last night we had a downed manned aircraft and the pilot was missing on scene, and so search and rescue just last night just after sunset. So happens quite often around here, and we've been using these things for that purpose for years. Wow. And we'll continue to do so. So any enhancements to this technology such as this that'll help with that application is much appreciated.
Gotcha. Alrighty. So we have a couple of promo offers available for today's attendees. As a special offer to anybody who attended today's webinar and purchases a M300, we'll include free personal video training. An expert instructor will cover all the information you need for setting up, operating, and maintaining your M300. We'll also discuss the best practices for your specific applications. Then, when it's safe to train in person again, we're offering a 50% discount on in-person training for anyone who attended this webinar and also makes a purchase. We'll cover the essentials, plus you'll gain real-world flight experience and a chance to network with other pilots. So these are a couple of special offers we're running for today's attendees. So now we're going to quickly touch on some of the questions that you guys submitted. If I don't cover your question, I'll follow up with you with an email. I'm going to try to make my way through these quick because we're coming up against the end of it, but I do want to touch on some of them. So first up, we have Dan is asking, is there a concern with the downward facing props for dropping something with a tow line? So this is something we're definitely going to need to test. I think that you'll have enough clearance and you'll be able to do it. But when we head out into the field, this is something we're definitely going to need to test and make sure that there is enough clearance. But I think that you'll be okay, Dan, but great question.
I'll just
Garrett, Derrick, yep.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, Mark. It's also, whenever you have something that's attached to the drone, you're going to be flying that drone a lot differently than you would otherwise. So you always have to pay real close attention to the angle of the drone as it's pulling, and to make sure that you're not actually, there's not too much tension being pulled on the drone that you start tilting that aircraft, or in a windy condition. So those are all things that I don't think the downward facing props are going to cause an issue. I think it's that the pilot really needs to pay attention to what's happening underneath the drone and to what it's attached to, and you'll be okay.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. All right, moving along here. Can the H20T be mounted on the 210? I'm sorry, Matthew. Unfortunately, the H20T, this new camera that we've been talking about, is only compatible with the Matrice 300. Will we receive the recorded version of the webinar? Yes, you will. And I would ask you, please go ahead and share that recording with a colleague. Okay. David, I see your question. That's going to take some research. I'm going to follow up with you directly. Okay, here's another one. Somebody's asking, we sometimes fly crime scene investigations on military bases. We're concerned about China being able to see our imagery and our data. Garrett, I'll direct that one to you. Is this one of these situations where maybe this is an appropriate solution, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is one of those where you really need to make sure that the operations command on the base understands what you're doing and everything else. And my personal opinion, this is probably one of those where a U.S. made type of tool would be better suited. And again, that sounds counter to what I said earlier, but again, now we're talking about defense, which is probably the legitimate use for it. But if ultimately it's up to command, that's their decision, and if they're okay with it, as long as you can get it geo unlocked and all that, you should be able to fly there as needed.
Got it. Next up, we have Chris asking, payload drop compatibility is a must-have. Agreed, Chris. What is the timeline for availability? I don't know that we have an exact ETA. The system is currently being developed. I think that we're looking at a matter of, Derrick, do you want to comment on that? I think weeks, maybe a month.
Yeah, I would hate to put a time out because I don't want to disappoint anybody. I think I'm hoping to see something, in a couple of months. But like I said, I don't want to put a time on it because I don't want to make that promise and break it.
The one thing I will say is that everything with DSLR Pros and with Derrick's help is we won't offer anything until we've tested it, approved it, and then sometimes it has to go back for revisions because there's opportunities for improvement. So until it's perfect, we really won't have an ETA, but it's being developed and we understand that it's needed, that it's time sensitive. All right, so next question from Chris, ballpark price tag for a ready to fly kit with the H20. Chris, DJI has UPP pricing, so we can't discuss pricing, but what I can say is that it will be priced very similar to a Matrice 200 series, similarly outfitted. And if you email sales@DSLR Pros or market DSLR Pros, or better yet, we'll follow up with you and we'll let you know the exact pricing. Next, Ward asks, how does this system do with teleoperator programs? Example, flying from an office beyond line of sight. So I'll touch on it quickly and then I'll hand it off to you guys. Obviously, the BV loss is an obstacle that you have to tackle if you want to do, if you want to do a teleoperator program. I don't necessarily have an answer for that part, but from a technology standpoint, the ability to go into the app, enter your GPS coordinates, enter your lat and long, and then drop a pin based on those coordinates is going to make it so that way if you know the coordinates, you can drop a pin on the map and then have the drone fly to that location. then there's a second operator on scene. You can use the dual operator feature and transfer the controls to an operator who's already on scene. So it really seems like between the pin drop feature and the dual operator feature, this drone is well geared for teleoperating programs. But I'm going to throw it to Garret, Barry, Derrick to add, as they may have more experience with this.
Oh, no, I'll touch on this one for just a second. So if I understand the question correctly, you want to be able to manually operate. Now one thing is if you're looking to autonomously fly it, that is one thing. And again, before I go into this, I want to reiterate what Mark said. You're going to have to get a waiver to fly beyond line of sight, unless you're talking about maybe through a window or something like that. Maybe that's the case. I don't really know the details, but however, one of the things about the 300 is the testing, at least for us. That's something that I would have loved to have tested maybe inside of a glass cage or something like that. But the testing was fairly short here. But if the transmission system is anything like, and of course this one's supposed to be better than the OcuSync 2, then pushing through physical barriers is actually one of its strong points. So while obviously your signal will be degraded because that's just physics, your range should still be fairly decent.
Got it. Yeah, I think that just to add to that, and then we'll move on. It seems like the drone is capable of this teleoperator system. The obstacle that I see is the BV loss. So I think that's the biggest obstacle to sort out. And again, guys, feel free to chime in if you want to add anything else to that topic. All right, the next question comes from Matthew. Is there a DJI tool to analyze the thermal data? Well, Matthew, I love this question because we just released a YouTube video on the DJI thermal analysis tool. So you can go to youtube.com/DSLR Pros or just search DSLR Pros in YouTube, and you'll find a video tutorial on how to use the thermal analysis tool. So for public safety operators, you're often not concerned with the exact temperature values, but on the industrial side, operators want to be able to see the exact temperature data, record it, report on it. You would use the DJI thermal analysis tool to accomplish that. All righty. So now the last question we have here is, are older Matrice accessories compatible on the Matrice 300? Great question. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we're going to see a ton of cross compatibility. The items that we know are compatible are going to be the Crystal Sky WB37 controller and monitor batteries. Those are compatible with M200 or M300, as well as the RTK base station is compatible P4, M200, M300. So those are the compatible accessories, but your primary flight batteries and the H20T, those are not going to be compatible from what we can tell. And again, if I missed your question, David, I saw your question. I'll make sure to reply to you directly with the answer if we don't have time to cover it today.
Hey, Mark, if you don't mind, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I do know a question that I've been asked a lot. And whenever I asked the question, it was nothing absolute yet. And I'm wondering if you might have an update. So I know a lot of people want to know if they'll be able to eventually, if not soon, be able to use their larger Crystal Sky monitor in conjunction with the new smart controller on this 300. Do you have any updated info?
That's a great question, and that's the $1 million question. So whatever I say now, I really need to quadruple check, because I know somebody's gonna, someone will email me and say I got it wrong, but my understanding is it is currently not compatible. The Crystal Sky that we know and love is not compatible with the M300. That's my current understanding. However, if you look at the Enterprise Smart RC, there are mounting patterns on the front of it. So there's clearly been designed so that way you can mount on an additional monitor. So I don't think that the Crystal Sky 7.85 that we all have in our kits is going to be compatible. Somebody feel free to chat me if I've got this wrong. But there will be options for a bigger monitor. I mean, we can see that there's mounting holes on it. The entire market is asking for a bigger monitor. I'm very confident there will be options for a larger monitor. I just don't think it's going to be that Crystal Sky monitor. Again, this is something that we're going to get clarification on, and if we have to update you guys, we certainly will.
Mark, does that mean that we couldn't link the Sendence controller to the 300?
Yeah, right now my understanding is that the Sendence is not compatible, and we're still waiting on some confirmation, but it seems like the setup will be the new Enterprise Smart RC that has a built-in smaller monitor. There's mounting brackets where you can put on an additional monitor. There's HDMI out, so you'll be able to get it to a bigger monitor. It's just a question of what exactly will be the solution there. And certainly DSLR Pros has always specialized in creating bundles around the most common solutions. We find the drones that the market is responding to, and then we find ways to kit them and bundle them to unlock the full potential. So the minute that third-party monitors become available, we'll have bundles that feature them. Okay, so we're running a couple minutes over. Just a couple of quick reminders. After the webinar, everyone will receive a copy of a link to a copy of the webinar. Please visit DSLR Pros or email sales@DSLR Pros if you want any more information on the hardware training promotions that we discussed. Check out our YouTube channel for a detailed comparison video on the M200 and the M300, as well as for a link for the thermal analysis tool. A big thanks to Garret, Barry, and Derrick for joining us and sharing your expertise. Lastly, we at DSLR Pros want to thank all the first responders out there keeping us safe every day. We appreciate what you do on a daily basis and are grateful for the opportunity to support this community. Thanks for attending this webinar and have a great day.
All right, thank you, Mark. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys.